Please, get close if you can, So welcome. The first thing I want to tell you is that God's hands have been all over this project, because as soon as the words were uttered, why don't we have a panel discussion? Everything just fell into place, no problems, no roadblocks. They said yes. I had to be coerced a little bit, but, and remember, I may be your moderator today, but I'm not a professional moderator, so cut me some slack if I don't do it perfectly. There's no real rules here today, except that we're going to have a discussion. We're not going to have a debate, so keep that in mind. And we're on a real tight schedule, and we have a lot of information we want to get to you. So with that being said, I will ask the panelists to introduce themselves and we'll get going.
I'll let you go first.
Don't be shy, guys. Sorry, David. We'll start with Dennis.
Can everybody hear me? Everybody good? I talk kind of loud for some reason. I don't know why. I'm Dennis Barber. I'm the major at the Sheriff's Office. I've been there about almost 20 years now. Retired Coast Guard. I really, for that time frame, I got kind of crowded up into the mental health. When I first started, the sheriff called me in the office and said, "Hey, we need somebody to be on the board." I said, "What board?" He said, "The one that you were appointed to this morning." He said, "How was your Mondays?" And I said, "I guess they'll be good if you let me get off." So I got on the Onslow Carteret Behavioral Health Board. So that was the first one I got on. Then they changed their name to Coastal Care, and I was moved over there, and the same thing. So I stayed on that board for quite a while, fighting for substance abuse prevention and mental health. And then somebody else asked me about another board, which I didn't know what the Peer Recovery Center did, so I'm that person that can't say no. So I got on the Peer Recovery Board, so I'm still there trying to do some changes and work for good. So I believe that there's a calling for all of us to come out and try to help with the mental health and substance abuse, and it's just, we've got to build an army, or we be shepherds of the flock and try to help the people. But I've always believed in it, and maybe hearing that coming from somebody in the law enforcement profession, we'll get into that a little bit later on, but I'll go ahead and that's what I do for a living, and that's what I believe in. And if you ever need to ask me a question, call me at the sheriff's office and I'll sure tell you what I think.
My name's Spencer Dawes. I've been a resident at Loaves Fishes for 6 months now, and I've also been clean for 6 months now. And now I've transitioned out of the program, and I'm working full-time now for ST Wooten, and I've been doing that for a few days here and there. And they're helping me kind of transition my life back to where it needs to be, as far as helping me budget, as far as helping me with transportation, and all things like that. And I mean, the only way I've been able to do it is like through the blood of Jesus Christ. So that's a little bit about me.
So you're not really out of the program?
No, I don't think I'll ever be out of the program. No, I think I'll continue to help volunteers. I mean, I plan on moving down here, and they've done so much for me, and I just want to give back. I've taken so much for all my life, and I just kind of want to help give back to everybody else around here. So.
And my name's David Bruce, and I'm the pastor at Calvary Baptist. I've been there about almost 16 years now. I moved here from Kernersville, Winston-Salem. I had a law enforcement career for about 20 years. God started pulling me here, pulling me to get more education, and sent me to seminary, and here we are. And I think He's kind of given me I didn't realize it was a spiritual gift, but I think there is a spiritual gift of hard-headedness. Because for some reason, I never gave up on Loaves Fishes, and I just kept pushing and pushing, and other folks beside me were pushing and trying to minister in more different and more effective ways to the community. And so we're still doing that. We're still kind of fluid, trying to find the most efficient and effective ways to minister, just the best way. So that's what we're doing right now. That's kind of who I am.
we'll get started, and just to let you know, we have some pre-written questions. We felt like that was in the best interest of time, but that doesn't mean that we don't want your input. If you have a question in regards to an answer, just raise your hand and we'll get to you. If I know that I'm going to ask that question down the road, I'll just ask you to bear with us. So we'll get started with our first question, and David, I'm going to direct this one at you. What are the major contributors to addiction? The how and why they get started?
Well, I'm not going to tell you what I've read and about statistics or anything like that. I'm going to tell you what I've seen, just with my own two eyes and listening to what other people tell me. The causes are the same causes for all the other problems that humans have, but economic issues. There are whole communities where it's like every young person is using, and so are their parents. That's quickly, becoming more and more and more. And it is like this around here in some spots too. But sometimes you grow up in that culture. That's just what you do. Other times you get addicted by accident after a surgery or something. And I know that local physicians are trying to do their best, but by and large across the country, it's kind of, the opioid crisis is kind of general practitioner driven with too much prescribing. Or at least that's what I read. I said I wasn't going to tell you what I read, but I did read it. I think what continues to drive it sometimes is economics. There's no other way to make money for some folks, but they can't find another way. And sometimes they have not known another way of life. We get a lot of fellas who that's the only life they've ever known. Now they've never known how to stop, how to live drug-free. They've never known how to hold down a job without quitting because you get sick because you don't have any dough. So those are the causes that I actually see.
Dennis, did you have anything to add?
I agree with David, and a lot of things that we're seeing today is lack of education on prescription drugs. When you go to your doctor, and I'm not going to bash the doctors, but when my parents were growing up, you went to the doctor and you believed everything the doctor told you, and if he handed you something, you took it. Nowadays, if a doctor or anybody hands you anything, if you can read what they give you at the hospital or the doctor's office without a pair of glasses, I'm amazed, because I can't see what they print and tell me that it's addictive, and you started taking it. It's just not a drug addict. It's not somebody off the street searching for drugs. It's people self-medicating, trying to fix something that they may have had when their parents were fighting domestic violence, assaults. Been in a car wreck, TBI, the military coming back. It's not that people are seeking drugs to become a drug addict. And those things are all factors that we have to look at. But when you hear anybody talking about physicians, doctors, hospitals, I don't know where they got to make you feel the best you got to when you walk out. I used to get a bare aspirin for everything in the world when I was sick. You took a bare aspirin for a toothache. If you cut your foot, you took a bare aspirin. I don't know how I didn't bleed to death. Because now they tell me to take one for your heart, and it makes your blood flow. But you do not have to have opiates to feel better. Motrin, ibuprofen, and some kind of medication for swelling and pain, you do not have to take an opiate. And the statistics that they just put out, the opiate overdoses and deaths are down. Fentanyl is up. That's a good stat to put out if you don't know what you're talking about. The fentanyl is mixed in with the heroin and with the opiate to make people die from it. And that's what's killing people in Carteret County and in North Carolina and the nation. So if you believe everything you read, and like David said, it's not always the truth, and please don't believe Google is everything and all things to find. They'll tell you one thing on one page and the next page they're telling you something different. So I make my own opinions of it. But if you are faced with something like that, and your grandkids or your kids, don't be the drug dealer. If your kid gets hurt on the football field at East Carteret or West Carteret, or I don't know if anybody's from Croatown, but they get hurt on the ball field or practicing, don't reach in that medicine cabinet and give a kid your opiate because you want them to feel better today. You know, old days you can soak in Epsom salt. Get back to the old natural ways of treating pain, and don't just take it because you want to feel good. That is not what we need. But do not become the drug dealer by giving your grandkids and kids the drug that the doctor gave you. That is a problem in Carteret County, and I don't want to call some grandparent a murderer because they gave medication illegally and your grandkid died from it, or somebody else's grandkid died from it. So please don't give your medication out. All right.
Well, and you answered part of the question too, so thank you for that. It's moving us right along. But one part of that I do want to ask, some states are passing, legalizing marijuana. How do you feel about that and the dangers of recreational drug use?
If you look at all the states right now that's got the marijuana laws where you can go buy it at a dispensary or somewhere else, there's more people going to DSS or social services asking for a handout. They're begging for money. The homeless population has increased. Seattle's got people living underneath the bridge up there on the other side of the country. It will cause a crisis. There's no way to check a person operating a motor vehicle under the influence of marijuana. And if you go out and drink every bit of the rum that probably passed through Beaufort since creation, we had a way to test that. But right now, we've got people operating cars and vehicles out there stoned out of their mind on pot. And that is something we don't want. And we're not in smoking hemp is marijuana. And the state's trying to push to stop that right now because I don't want anybody out there stoned out of their mind driving a car and almost hit me head on. And I know the sheriff's pushing to stop that smokable hemp. And I think it's going to be passed in the end of the year. And Sheriff Buck has gone back and forth up to Raleigh to make sure that's taken care of, but we don't want that.
So you agree that it's a gateway drug?
I think it is, and I know everybody believes it's not, but I know a lot of youngins that's got into smoking pot and they mix crack in it. In this part of North Carolina, they called it snap, crackle, pot. They gave you the free marijuana so you could get hooked on crack, and then we had crack dealers and crackheads all over Carteret County for a while. So it is here, and it is a gateway drug. Everybody can try to tell me something different, but when I go to a house and find somebody that's messed up on pot, getting behind the wheel of a car, trying to leave, we've got to stop them and bring a DRE guy. A guy has to go through training over and over and over through emergency rooms and spend all kinds of money so they can come and look at their eyes, and they go through that court system, and all of a sudden it's dismissed because you can't prove that they were impaired when they were driving.
What about the legal drugs that have surfaced in Carteret County, Kratom? Has there been any actions to get rid of that?
They're trying to work on that right now. Synthetic drugs like that, you know, we had bath salts and spice come on, spice with synthetic marijuana. Have y'all?
Kratom's awful.
Yes.
Awful.
It'll cause you to have hallucinations. You're running down the street, you're sweating, it looks like you're having a heart attack or a stroke. It is really bad, and
What is Kratom?
it is a synthetic drug. And it's just about like bath salts and spice, well, spice. And bath salts is not Epsom salt. I want to make sure everybody understands that. That's nothing you soak in, it's something you smoke and use, and you end up seeing pink elephants and running down the road toward Harker's Island with no clothes on, not knowing where you're at. It is very dangerous, and you know that's going to be the next thing that's killing people in Carteret County. And they're trying to fight every one of them and change the laws to get some of these drugs where no matter what you call it, how you get it, how it's derived, they're trying to get those drugs off the street. So we don't like it. And the first night that they banned spice in North Carolina, we were out going into all the convenience stores that were selling it just before midnight. Said you got 1 minute left. And if you don't have it out of this store, you're going to be under arrest for the next time. So we cleared it off the street pretty quick. But we cleaned up Carteret County, but And the adjoining county didn't really go as fast as we did, so they went across the border toward Craven County, got what they needed, and then tried to bring it back, and we was trying to arrest them as fast as we could. Because we didn't need that. We didn't need people threatening to kill their parents or try to eat them or anything. I mean, it does happen.
Sure. Spencer, I know you're a little bit nervous, but I think you're the most important person on the panel, so I have a question for you. He's ready. What has to happen to be free of addiction and learn how to live in a world without drugs?
Well, I think the main thing is you got to change your perspective, your way of life. Because I think like 90% of the time. Oh, okay.
He's going to pick up the mic.
Mic check if you need to. I think the main thing is you got to change your perspective on life. I know, I'd say probably about 90% of addiction starts with some sort of underlying trauma, or even some sort of like behavioral condition, whether it's anxiety, PTSD, some sort of borderline cause. I think, when you want to change, I mean, you can go to you can go to a program and do all these things, detox and that, but the bottom line is you got to make it up in your mind that, you're going to change, and you got to change your way of life, and that starts by changing your perspective. So when I got to Loaves Fishes, they introduced me to Jesus, and I got into the Word, and slowly over time, God revealed little things to me about my life that I knew I was missing. So I finally filled that hole in my heart, I guess you could say, with Him. So this means changed everything for me.
All right. Yes. He's really special to me. Sure.
How did you get to that point of knowing you needed a change?
That's hard to ask because sometimes I've been through the ringer. I even overdosed and I was, practically dead, blue in the face for 5 or 6 minutes, and then the very next day I was back to using. And then one night in my car, just on the way to, score some more dope, I don't know, I just felt God's presence calling me back to get sober again. And I knew right there in my mind that this was just the end of it. I'm tired of living like this. I'm tired of having to lie to everybody. I'm tired of the stealing. I'm tired of making my mom suffer and my sister suffer. I'm just trying to, I don't know, I just got fed up with it. I knew there was another way of life because I had lived it before I became addicted, and now I'm kind of living, just having fun like a kid again, enjoying life, not really depressed, not a little anxious up here, but it's getting a little bit easier. This is my first little public speaking thing, but I'm just rolling with it. But, I guess everybody's rock bottom is different. Everybody gets to a different point in their life where they've just had enough.
I've heard that story about him feeling the presence of the Lord, and it touched me so very much. And I was going to ask him if he would share that, and I'm so glad I didn't have to ask that. He just did it willingly. But I truly believe that made a difference for Spencer and hopefully for the rest of his life as well. David, how long does it typically take for recovery? Is Loaves and Fishes open-ended, or do the clients stay as long as they need? Tell us a little bit about how that works.
It's open-ended. We have one fellow that's been with us about 3 years, and he'll probably be with us the rest of his life. I don't know, but he does well. You've probably seen him mowing grass with the yellow lawnmower riding up and down the street, but he also does some work for us. And so he's more of a house manager, groundskeeper. But the program itself can last any amount of time a person needs. We started off, with the typical 28-day, 30-day model that a lot of medical agencies have used, medical-oriented places, and we didn't find a lot of success in that. It just takes longer than 30 days for somebody to change their mind. Most of them just went right back to the same old thing. We found 3 months is about a time where fellows, the ones that do stay drug-free and stay with us, that's sort of a time where they think, well, I've kind of got this beat now. I'm going to be okay. And that's a dangerous attitude. We call it a pink cloud, is you kind of think it's okay, and then you go back out, and a few months later, you're right back at it. But the fellows that stay somewhere around 6 months do the best. And you can stay too long because it starts to go the opposite direction, we have found the hard way. That you get bored with what you're doing, you've just been there too long, it's time to get back out and get busy with your life. So we found, I don't know, I can't scientifically prove this, but for us, just with observation, the magic number seems to be about 6 months.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask and answer the next question myself because I wrote it. What can family do for loved ones who have an addict? And I asked that question the last time I went to spend time with the men, and I said, what can I tell my friends? I have so many friends who have family members who suffer with addiction. What would you have me say to them? And immediately one of the men looked at me and said, don't enable me. Don't enable me. And he went on to tell the story about how he would go to his dad, and his dad would say no, and then he'd go to his mom, and his mom would give him the money or whatever it was he was asking for. So don't enable me. Would you add to that, Spencer?
I'd agree. I mean, I've sat there and 20-year-old man crying and begging his mama for $20, and she just got to the point where it was no more stuff love. You're doing that, you ain't living under my roof, and she kicked me out for a week, and I finally came to realize I need to tighten up because I do need a little help from mama at this stage of my life. So I've always needed it, to be honest.
Did Dennis, David, people when you're on, have anything to add to that?
I can always add that.
Well, how about it?
I believe in what he just said. You gotta love your children, no matter what you do. You're gonna love your kids no matter what. And it's hard sometimes to not give them money. It is your kid. Do what you have to, but you remember what you do could affect them. If you give them the $20 and they go out, something happens to them, you're gonna live the rest of your life that you may have been at fault or gonna blame somebody else for what just happened. $20, you can get them to a little heroin. Shoot up with fentanyl, then you'll be dead in just a couple minutes. If nobody's ever harmed you. Don't enable them. The sheriff will fire me if I said some of the things, but I believe if your kid is incarcerated, think about before you let them out and get them out and bond them out. If you get them out, they're going to be back on the street at the same time doing the same thing on the same day that they did the day before they got locked up. If they're not in that jail for a few days and get detoxed, we're one of the top leading detox centers in Carteret County. There's nowhere else to go. It's a shame. We don't like it. We want them to get out and don't give up. And Loaves Fishes, I'm going to throw something at them. Loaves Fishes has not gave up. They're still here. We've had other agencies come in, and I think we'll probably get to it a little bit, but the enabling part, they come in here and they enable people in some facilities where they just give them more medicine, get them zoned out, and they come back on the street just on a different form of methadone or a different form of drugs that they shouldn't have, and the parents are paying for it. But don't ever give up, just like Loaves Fishes. They've been here. They've done it. They haven't given up on the community.
There's a gift of hard-headedness.
We're cut from the same stone. You know that, right?
But I think that one line, don't enable, and to share that with family and friends is so important, because I sat across the table from a mother not too long ago and said that to her, and she just kind of looked like, oh, and we do that every day.
Carol, may I speak to that? Just
Sure.
really fast.
Sure.
I'm sorry, just one second. I want to tell you from a parent's perspective, our daughter was on heroin for 4 or 5 years. She's been clean for 10 years. She's a clinical social worker at a mental hospital in New Jersey, so she's doing fantastic. But during those years, it was horrible. And I look back, and now I can see how we denied it, how we were in denial, and we didn't want to think that our child could possibly do that. So the first thing we found, she's like 13 or 14, was a little bag of marijuana in one of her drawers. And she said, well, I'm just holding deaf for Angela, her friend. And we believed it. You just don't want to believe your child could be doing that. And you know, we did enable some, we didn't know. I think our denial was so strong that we saw it in front of our eyes and didn't want to believe it. And so we lied to ourselves. Until finally the day came, it was just right in our face. And I have to confess, I probably sinned when I did this, but I got to the point where I said, listen, if you don't stop, I'm so tired of worrying about where you're at every night. I'm going to kill you myself. God will forgive me. I'll go to jail, but at least I'll know where you're at. And she kind of went, like, maybe he means that. But anyway, she did. She finally came around, and she's been off of it for about 10 years now, and she doesn't even think about it anymore. But that's what I want to tell you, is the denial. Don't ever think, just because you're from a good family, or because your family makes a lot of money or makes a little bit of money, it's irrelevant.
It
Don't
doesn't
deny it.
discriminate. Addiction, it does not discriminate. It'll take anybody. Anybody that says yes. Yes, sure.
Is there a women's program in Carteret?
There's, we used to have women in our program, but it didn't work, men and women. So the Miriam, ran by ex-detective Tammy Thomas. She has that in Newport, does a great job with the ladies there. And there's another one, Magnolia, I think it is.
Magnolia Landing?
Yes.
Yeah, that's for women too. That's a little more upscale. And I can't think of anything else for women.
But Sarah, just so you know, the UMW supports the Miriam Women's Group. So we are involved in that as well, just to answer part of your question. What is the success rate of Loaves Fishes program? I know people probably want that answered. David, can you give us any information on that?
I can give an opinion. I can't give any statistics because, you know, most of those are made up anyway. You can't really track that many people unless you're doing some sort of a scientific study or something like that. And we don't do that. But the people that we can keep track of, we see them on Facebook. We kind of judge by the men that go through the program. About 2/3 of them are very successful. And about 1/3 aren't. They just go right back. We've had folks that stay with us 6 months and they never changed a bit. They had the same attitude when they left as when they came. And when they left, they went straight back to their old thing. So it is a change of mind, but probably, my guess is about 2/3. Would you think?
I agree with that.
Good enough. You have stressed that the addict getting away from their environment helps. So, and I wrote this question so I know what my intent was. This is an open-ended program. This is faith-based here in Carteret County. Is there anything outside of Carteret County where we can send our people from Carteret County to receive the same kind of treatment? There's a program like
There's
this
one in
one
Wake
that
Forest.
mirrors this program.
There's one in Wake Forest. I can't remember the name of it, but I know the men that operate it. They do the exact same thing that we do on a smaller scale. And they're very successful. And there's different ones up in the mountains. I think Hebron Colony is one. They do very well. There's one in Yadkinville called, no, just went right out of my mind. It's ran by the Winston-Salem Rescue Mission. Alpha Acres is the name of it. And it's a 100-acre farm where they go and they spend a year. They're away from everything. So they're going to walk quite a few miles if they want to get anything.
That's good.
But there's others too.
Good, because I'm sure that's on the mind of people who who have family members or know people and they don't know where to go to get help.
You know, come see us. We've got a lot of resources listed.
Dennis?
I just said something about Google and don't believe everything you get online. But if you Google it, it'll tell you, Google places in North Carolina for substance abuse or mental health, and you'll come up with a whole list. There's so many. Trask up in Durham, they take you in there, you have to work for a living. I mean, you stay there, there's a 1 year to 2 year program. First at Blue Ridge, it's clean to the mountains, so they're not gonna walk back home and try to get away. Then the bus is the only way to get out of there. There's no airplanes, so we know when they're coming back. Potter's Wheel down in Mount Olive is another one. There's quite a few places down around Wilmington. But the problem is, folks, when you send your kid away, those long-term facilities, the first 6 months, you probably ain't gonna have any contact with them. Because you have some, I think we talked about it before, there's some factors that might be something between the parent and the kid. Well, you ain't a kid no more, are you? You're a grown man.
I try to be a kid.
Maybe not so much anymore.
But there is other places, you know, when somebody's adjudicated through the court system, mandatory they go somewhere. Sometimes it is these 2 year programs they have to go to and they have to stay. If they come back and they're adjudicated through the system, which means they probably won't get a second chance, but you know, we're a second chance community. Sometimes we've had people come back and go again. You know, and
Okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I'm done.
Okay. This is for David. What does the program offer its clients that leads to their success when they leave the program?
When they leave, we don't really have anything set in place. We encourage them, we give them a discharge plan, encourage them to stay in contact with us. And usually we have become such good friends by that time. We're calling each other, Facebooking each other, even going to visit some of the folks. And we do encourage them to get into their local church. That's a main, I mean, that's like a staple. That's the main thing, is to get involved in your local church. Don't just attend, but become a real life member and get involved in the social activities. And that's one of the first things, and Spence will tell you, as soon as you start leaving God out of the picture, then you're starting to head down the wrong path again, slowly but surely.
I can attest to that because I did have a little relapse, long relapse, but I got back home and I was like, man, I can finally take a break from church. Don't have to read my Bible, don't have to do my devotions in the morning, and I just consumed myself with work, and then I slowly just fell back into it. And I will say, like, she brought up Creighton, I will say that could be the cause of my relapse, because it kind of produced a little euphoric feeling, and, you know, I needed something a little more, so I started drinking into the pills, and was back to the heroin. So, I mean, really staying connected with God, staying grounded with Him, I mean, that's the thing that's kept me focused this entire time here.
Spencer, I have a question for you. You told me one time that you have to want it. It can't be that you told me it can't be because my mom wants me in the program. That's not going to lead to success. So speak to that for just a minute, because that's important.
Yeah, because I did. Okay. Yeah, because I did like 8 months here, and my attitude never changed. The way I lived in life never changed. I just kind of went through the motions. I was just trying to please my mom and my aunt, who kind of pushed me to getting sober. And I went back home and I did stay clean for about, 2 or 3 months or so. Just kind of running off the momentum and trying to prove everybody wrong. Like, my pride kind of got in the way. I didn't want to look like, I done talked a big game on Facebook to everybody when I first got sober, and like, oh, I'm never going back to that. And I mean, nothing ever changed in me, so I went right back to it. And I think, when people get clean and get out, their relationships with their parents or friends, it's kind of tarnished from the trust, because trust takes such a long time to build and it can be ruined in seconds. So, I mean, if your kid or somebody you know gets sober, I think it's good to have like a little bit of counseling sessions when they get back, so y'all both know how to like communicate and bond with each other, because me and my mom will still butt heads sometimes over the whole trust scenario. So.
Okay, and I've got, Orion.
Spencer, just briefly, talk a minute about the importance of evaluating friendships when you get out of the program, going back home or going back for a visit or whatever, and reconnecting with people that you hung with before that maybe, and some of them may be lifelong friends.
Yeah. Well, I do actually, I have a buddy who was in addiction too, who was really a lifelong friend. And we still communicate on Facebook, but we agree it's probably going to be 4 or 5 years down the road now before we can ever go out and just have a bite to eat together. Like maybe we can attend church and then that's that. But really, all my other friends, I wouldn't, I evaluated them and I don't think they were ever friends at all. So I just kind of had to, it's like AA says, the people, places, and things, you just have to change them all up. And that's why I just kind of plan on moving down here and getting away from it all. New environment, new people, which is really my church family, staying connected with people who want to get closer to God.
You good with that? All right, this is going to be the final question because we're going to have to wrap it up for the next service. And this is for David. What are some of the goals a client must or should meet before leaving the program?
Well, they need to have a heart change. They need to have their mind changed, and then Romans 12:1-2 is sort of our theme, that you must be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And that's the angle that we go to, is to help people learn to think differently. That is absolutely 100% essential. Because if you never learn to think differently, just like Spencer said, 8 months in a program does absolutely no good if you have the same mentality. And so we use all the various techniques that we have and literature that we have is to help folks think differently about who they are. And ultimately, we want them to see who they are in God. We want them to see themselves the way God sees them. And since I can manipulate the floor just for a second, I just want to say one word about churches quickly. The church can play a major role in combating this problem by simply loving people, not shunning people that have problems. I know our church has changed drastically over the years. There's more love than I've ever seen us have. And they have embraced all of our men. They go to our church most of the time for logistical reasons, but you've gotten, like 6 grandmothers now. They bake a couple grandpas, they bake cakes, they come and they go over to the guy's house and bring food and help whip them into shape a little bit too.
Not really in shape, we've gained about 70 pounds.
But that mind change, and the church is the best avenue for having that mind change. When they say when they say me, being real and really truly loving them, does it make a difference?
I mean,
can you tell the difference when somebody in the church is just tolerating you being there and they're real happy that you're there?
oh yeah. I mean, I receive hugs every time I go in there. And I mean, that's one reason I was probably so depressed back at home, because I felt like you see all the bad news on TV and feel like the world's so cold, and then you get down here and it's one big like loving community. So I mean, that's one thing for the first time ever really see God working in people around this place right here. So I mean, but really kind of restored my faith in humanity a little bit. So
I think that's a great way to wrap this up. So I'm so grateful that you came. So grateful.
I just have one other thing.
Sure.
How can we support Loaves Fishes the best way? Because we know we have the
Financially. Okay. But I'm sure there's other ways too, and you can probably talk to David about that, or Kurt, He's kind of our liaison here.
Financial and volunteerism.
Yeah. I'm a volunteer, so, I give that commitment of time, but I also know that I need to give a financial
We
commitment.
need people in the thrift store. The thrift store pays for about half of the ministry. So even if you worked 4 hours a week, there's tremendous donations that come in there. I mean, this community is unbelievable. But we need people to sort it, display it, take the cash. There's lots of ways. If you're good at kind of talking to people, men about the Bible. We do it twice a week. We do devotions with Spencer and the crew twice a week. You can always use people. You don't have to be a Bible scholar. You just have to feel the need to help someone understand God's love.
Let me say too, Kurt, that we could use men in the evenings to do devotions at the men's houses. You could rotate around, go over about 7 and have like an hour Bible discussion, devotion with the men. That's one thing we're lacking now because we don't have enough people. And also, like you said, like taking clothes out of bags, putting them on hangers. We would personally rather stick a pencil in my eye than do that, but we do it. All right, now they do it. But we do have a couple of success stories in the back. I don't know if they want to be pointed out or not, but there's one, and there's one standing up in the back there. She manages a thrift
He's
shop.
over here.
I didn't want to say your name for anonymity's purpose.
All right. Somebody's happy. Well, God bless and amen. Okay, before I dismiss you, if you would let us go to the Lord in prayer. Okay. Most gracious and Heavenly Father, you know just what we need and when we need it. And I thank you for bringing these good people here today into this room to listen and learn. And hopefully they will take the information back out into the community and perhaps help someone who doesn't know where to turn, or maybe dispel a myth or a prejudice against addiction. So as we all go out into the world, let us take your light with us so that we might show others what it looks like to be a faithful follower. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.